Wow. Alive. Oh, Nicolas and Robert, we did it. How is that after 20 years that I do interview, every time that there is a connection and technology involved, it never works everything perfectly, the first time? I don't know. Maybe I'm just unlucky, or it's just technology, maybe.
I think, the fun about the world today is that we think that we're living in the most advanced time, but when you start to push all the buttons, it doesn't always work, and you go back to the old ways.
It is. I recently launched my NFT collection, and I was talking with the dev. Everything fine, perfect. How is the test? Perfect. API, perfect. Everything good. And every time he said perfect, I thought, oh gosh, that doesn't feel good. And then we arrived at the day of the minting, and the API from OpenSea, they completely crashed. So they had to do manually all the things. And I said, is it perfect now? No. So, but that's, how technology is, like you keep trying, testing. It's a very complex mechanism. And all of this Web3 world is very complex. So I was curious to understand more about Gucci approach in this world. And first of all, maybe I start with Nicolas. For people that are not familiar with your job, what do you do exactly in Gucci?
So I joined Gucci 7 years ago when we started a new chapter with the new CEO and creative director, and I started working as head of strategy and right hand of the CEO. Then I moved to digital. I led the global digital business of Gucci for 3 years, and a year and a half ago we decided as a company to create a new division called New Businesses, formally and informally Dream Big. That is meant to create new businesses for Gucci at the frontier between tech and fashion. So I'm leading this division, and obviously all our streams in gaming and metaverse are part of it, as well as our new online concept store, Gucci Vault.
Fantastic. And same for you, Robert, so that we have the context exactly.
Sure. So I joined Gucci actually 14 years ago,
Wow.
But in this particular chapter, which, as Nicolas said, began about 7 years ago, I am looking after kind of the storytelling around the brand, working very closely with Alessandro, our esteemed creative director, and then across all the client touch points. So digital, traditional, really to try to make sure that this brand can deepen its engagement with our community. Got it.
And you immediately touched one of the keyword of Web3, which is community. And I was chatting before with Nicolas, and I thought, wow, is fantastic on one side, and on the other side is such an effort because they never sleep. On Discord, they are always active and chatting, asking, requesting, and you think, wow, is great, but there is a huge amount of effort there. And if you're not committed as a personal brand or a brand, it is very, very tricky, I think, to enter. So I was curious to step back a second. And when Gucci decided to go into this Web3 world, and then we'll try to unpack every pieces of this Web3 world, I was curious to understand what was the philosophy behind, because it's a very difficult also world to start, where you start from. So maybe I start with Nicolas from, let's say, the tech, digital vision perspective, and then I come to the storytelling side.
Yeah, well, Gucci, has always been at the forefront in digital. Back 15 years ago, we were probably the first brand opening its own e-commerce website. We kept really being digital first as a brand since Marco joined, and experimenting constantly. And here, this new chapter, I would say we started from gaming. We were very, very advanced in gaming already, with a team working on the right way to position the brand in games. We worked, as you know, we did a crazy exhibition with Roblox 6 months ago, where we had 20 million visitors in 2 weeks. We worked with Pokemon Go. We worked with Tennis Clash. We worked with The Sims. And progressively, this evolved into NFT. So more or less a year ago, the concept of NFT really exploded. So we were looking at that. We found it extremely interesting, the concept of digital collectible, and also beyond this, the fact that NFTs are about community, scarcity and creativity. And this is what is core to a brand like Gucci. So we started with a first NFT that we issued in spring last year that was a digital artwork around Aria, our fashion show last year, that we sold on Christie's. It was the first, I think, NFT in the luxury world. And we started trying to understand a bit more what was happening. And from there, we decided naturally to open a Discord account and to explore further. We don't know where this is going. What we know is that as Gucci, we want to be testing and learning. The only way to know is to test rather than waiting and seeing. We want to shape the direction. So this is why we are very much taking experimental steps. So it started with Discord, that, as you say, is something completely new as a social media. We manage social media very well, but Discord is a completely new kind with a much more active community. We dropped a second NFT in February with Super Plastic, a collab with this LA brand. And now we have just this project that was just announced with Wagmi-san, the tailor of the metaverse. But it's a very much step-by-step testing and learning approach, trying to understand what are the kind of projects that are really relevant to a brand like us. That's where we start from, authentic, engaging with the community as well and learning from our first steps and moving in this direction, again, around scarcity, community, creativity. That for us is the basis.
Got it. Robert, there is a lot of skepticism around those topics. So for instance, in the gaming industry, you have some big players that first announced, we're going to do some NFTs. Then the community didn't react very well. So they say, no, sorry, we are joking. We will not do it. And I would say majority of companies are a bit scared. Probably they don't know exactly what to do. So from a marketing perspective and a storytelling perspective, it's not an easy job. I was curious to understand how did you approach it at the beginning, and what's your take on this challenge?
So I think it's perhaps worth going back to the beginning of this chapter 7 years ago, when Gucci really under, again, Marco Bizzarri and Alessandro Michele's vision became quite disruptive to itself and to the industry, because luxury and fashion luxury had always been defined in a way by this kind of exclusive, at a distance ambience and this kind of feeling. And back in 2015, we kind of turned the tables on that, and we said, today, with social media, with the way that communities are engaging and building around issues and around values, this actually could be a great moment where the notion of co-creativity could be very powerful. So again, disrupting the industry, we began to create these collaborations. And I think that they inspired the community around the brand, and the values that Nicolas was referring to in terms of authenticity, innovation, and disruption became kind of the symbols of Gucci. So when we began to think about NFTs, for example, or the metaverse, for us it was very natural to look at this as an opportunity, but always to engage with the community in an authentic way. And as Nicolas said, whilst I don't think anyone in this community can really predict what is going to happen, even in a month's time, let alone a year or 2 years' time, for us, the most important thing is that we approach it with authenticity, with the values that are important to us as a brand and to our community. So again, if you look at the way that we've approached entering into the gaming world, entering into the NFT world, we have always tried to do it with respect for the community, engaging individuals who are a fundamental part of that community to help us understand how to go about doing it in the most appropriate and the most respectful way. So I think that is, if you look back at all of the collaborations that Nicolas mentioned, that has been a defining factor for us.
And I think what you were saying, that the approach is that authenticity comes before perfection, because we cannot be perfect in this world. We are all learning. But if you are authentic and true to the community, then it's very well understood the way you enter.
Yeah, definitely. For a second, I was thinking that I would love to do Robert's job for a second. Not the tough part, but when you call and say, hey, is Robert Gucci, we would like to have a collaboration with you. And everyone say yes. Everyone say, yes, please, let's schedule a call. That has to be a fantastic feeling. Let's be honest about it.
Well, look, what I would say is that the beautiful thing about when you become kind of inclusive in your approach and you kind of welcome the idea of co-creativity is that you get wonderful encounters, serendipitous encounters. And I think what's really interesting, if we look at the journey that we're on with the metaverse, is that it is truly organic. I mean, when you are on Discord, as you were just saying, this is kind of a living organism.
Yeah.
And seeing that, as it were, iterate around creativity, around ideas, it's a beautiful thing to watch, to be honest.
How do you keep that's the challenge that's the part of your job that I wouldn't like to do, because I find it very difficult. How do you keep a brand like Gucci, I wouldn't say exclusive, but like top? Gucci is a top brand, is like is perceived like Gucci, and sometimes when you associate a brand like that to new technologies that are still evolving and they feel a bit cheap. I don't know if it's the right word in English, but they don't feel really like exclusive or luxe. They feel like not great. How do you make it in a way that you preserve the brand, but you also start to test the technology?
I mean, I'll give you an answer from a kind of brand positioning standpoint, and then maybe Nicolas can build on that. I think that everything that we do as a brand is highly curated. I mean, we clearly want to make sure that the brand is, when you engage with this brand, you experience what you anticipate you should experience with this brand. So the notion of that qualitative experience is underlying everything that we do. Even if we're trying a new platform, we will always look at how we can approach that new platform, even if it's an experiment, in a way that truly mirrors the values, the aesthetic, and the curation that you would expect from Gucci. So let me say that everything that we do in every way is highly, highly curated.
Right. How do you see this one, Nicolas? Because some platforms, like I'm thinking Discord, I'm thinking platforms that are just born, basically, they don't look very curated, or maybe some gaming experience. So sometimes maybe there is the risk that you think, wow, this is Gucci, but I don't know. But on the other side is also what I think what gives a brand a new, fresh look. You start to have a conversation with the different target that maybe start to appreciate the brand, a younger audience. I mean, there are a lot of benefits, but a lot of stuff to deal with, I imagine.
But well, we obviously, when we enter a new platform, we carefully evaluate if it's the right place for us to be, and in case there is a gray area, we have a discussion to make sure that the environment is appropriate. That does not mean that it has to be luxurious, but it has to be appropriate in a way or another. Then
right.
What we really try to differentiate is the way we do things. That being a brand, when in the case of a brand entering a platform where there are no other brands, we want to make sure that we do things differently and we explain our positioning. Then this being said, I would also just insist on the fact that there are many, many things that you can do that are incredible. When you see Gucci Garden on Roblox, the kind of immersion that you can create in the brand when you visit the exhibition during 20 minutes is much, much richer than you can do with many other media. So it's not, I think, black and white. There are also a lot of possibilities that we exploit. And then the last thing I would say is that we make sure that in whatever we bring and propose to the consumers, we bring value that is creative, that is relevant, So we are not going, certainly not going for easy profits or easy win. We want to make sure that whatever we bring in the market, we are going to bring something as Gucci that is true to Gucci and differentiated.
Right, got it. Help my audience to understand what's the, in your vision, what's the priority there? If you've been talking about gaming, metaverse, NFT, there is like a sort of different priority, or they are all on the same level and you just try to experiment and see how it goes? What's your vision there about all of these Web3? And then, because I was thinking Gucci could do, I mean, you can launch your own token. You can create, I don't know, a DeFi platform for fashion. I mean, you can do everything, but you have to decide what is right and what is wrong, and what's the priority there.
Yeah, and I absolutely, I think those different domains, gaming, NFT, etc., they are for us at an equal level of priority, and the prioritization comes more into what we do inside each of them, right? And they are probably, by the way, components of the so-called metaverse, because at the end, the metaverse is probably the convergence of immersive experience like Roblox and adding an NFT layer to it, and all these combined is going to become the metaverse. So we really see them as building blocks. On the gaming side, we have three pillars that is more mature and more established already. We have three pillars, I would say. One is really create and represent and position the brand in some games or platforms in order to let people discover the brand and engage with the brand in a different way. Very much always around self-expression. That is our mantra. So that's one pillar. The second one is partnering with esports team. We are either partner or good friends with 100 Thieves in the US, with Fnatic in the UK, and with T1 in Korea for the value they represent and for the community they represent. And the third pillar that is new is we are now launching a partnership with Faceit, that is a big online gaming platform, to work with them on a kind of academy to support players in becoming professional. So that's the gaming part. I would say the Web3 part is much more experimental for the moment, and we take steps one by one, starting from creating a Discord, Gucci Vault. I encourage everybody to join us to see what we are doing, where is really the starting point to engage with the communities, and then shaping projects for the moment with partners like Super Plastic or like 10KTF in this moment, and then potentially very much ourselves as soon as the technology will enable it. But it's very much more step by step rather than a long-term plan that we have already.
I was curious. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think that if you go back, as Nicolas said, I mean, Gucci was one of the first brands, if not the first in the luxury space to launch e-commerce. At the time, there was great cynicism about whether you could actually offer a luxury experience online. And of course, history has proven that you absolutely can. And over the last 20 years, if we think, because it's been a progressive kind of digital revolution, we think about social media at the same time. There was the question, can luxury brands have social media platforms? Then there was AR. Can luxury brands embrace what AR has to offer? And I think as every one of these new technical innovations has come along, technological innovations has come along, I think we've seen that if you embrace them, if you test and learn, you can find, because it's the future. And the moment you kind of try to shut the door on the future, you probably fail. So I think as long as you can understand as you test and learn how they can be applied to your experience in an appropriate way, it's actually very liberating along the way. And you really engage with your community in ways, particularly as a brand, that intersects with how culture is changing and evolving as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was chatting the other day, I don't remember with who about this topic, and he was saying that, comic books, for instance, for us, they were very important. I was reading Spider-Man when I was, 10 years old. And now maybe you start from NFTs, and a new movie will be made out of an NFT collection, because there is where maybe culture moved and your cultural references. So it's changing a lot. I was curious to understand how is this, let's say, Gucci Web3 unit is structured, is organized. How many people are there? I don't know if it's a public data this one, but just to understand, help my audience to understand how a company like Gucci say, okay, we're going to do this, but how do we organize to achieve good results?
Well, it's actually not specific to Web3, it's specific to this new division that I created, where we were asking ourselves, how is it that you create a division that is going to be fast enough and autonomous enough to make quick steps in testing and learning new businesses, but at the same time needs to be deeply connected to their brand, because their brand is one and the storytelling is one. And if you do something, it's not that a brand like Gucci can create a startup, because if you move away from the brand, you lose the relevance. So what we try to do is I have a few core teams that are relatively small and nimble, working on the different streams, really focused. And then we have bridges. So to answer your question on Web3 is a handful of people. And then obviously they are not alone, because they are deeply connected with obviously our brand and client engagement teams when it's relevant. They are deeply connected with our legal team. They are deeply connected with our tech team. And all these areas actually are areas where you need to build the Web3 knowledge, because you don't communicate on a Web3 project the same way you communicate on something else. You don't build a legal agreement with a Web3 partner the same way you do it with a department store. So I would say it's a mix of a small core team, but at the same time, building expertise across the company to create the link and move fast.
And how do you storytell inside the company, Robert? Because I imagine that at the beginning, telling inside the company, all right, guys, we're going to do an image that people can buy, I don't know. And I imagine the faces inside the company say, are you really sure, Robert and Nicolas? Because maybe it's not a good idea. So how did you structure this process to educate also the company?
That's a really important question. I think that, when you have a culture which is about innovation and testing and learning and disruption, you at least know that within the company there is that spirit and attitude, so that if you mention that you're going to experiment with something, people are not necessarily taken aback. At the same time, I think the metaverse is such a fast developing area that a true knowledge and understanding of what the metaverse means and everything that goes with the metaverse is not necessarily easy to convey or cascade. So in fact, we're dedicating a lot of time at the moment to developing training and educational models that can help us in this journey, because also you have to remember that our 20-odd thousand employees are obviously then engaged with stakeholders outside of the company, first and foremost our clients. And our clients are exposed to what Gucci is doing because they read about it, they may connect directly because they're on Discord. So having a front line of client advisors who understand this journey that we're on and at least can storytell around it is an important part of the communication theory that goes into all of this.
What are the main obstacles there when you have to think about like the storytelling for a new project, thinking about journalists, how they will react, what are they more concerned about, clients, partners? Is there in your mind now like a top 3 topics list that you say, I already know that the problem that we have to address are probably those ones, or they keep changing?
Well, I mean, I think that because this is, let's say, not a traditional area that we're launching into, it's unconventional. There's a lot of exploration built into what we're doing. All of those topics that actually Nicola was just referencing when it comes to the legal aspects of privacy, the tech aspects of making sure that things don't crash, and then the actual storytelling about why is Gucci doing something like this. All of this requires thoughtful messaging and the ability to evolve quickly, because this is such a fast developing area that things can literally move within 48 hours on one of these topics. So you have to be agile, you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to respond in a very fluid way.
I was wondering, Nicola, what do you expect is going to happen in the next 5 years? And I throw, 5 years can happen anything, but let's say, do you expect that if I go to buy a hoodie, a jumper or whatever, I will immediately get the physical one, the NFT of that hoodie that give me maybe access to some utilities with specific access utilities with the brand, plus a digital version of this one that I can use, because if I go inside the metaverse, then I want to use a digital version of my same one. That will be like the standard way to sell a product in a few years, or it will go in a different direction.
I think it could be. I really think it will be much beyond this. That is not just creating a digital twin for physical products. That could happen, will happen, but it's just a beginning. But for me, the way we look at Web3 is really a different way to engage with the consumers, because it's about the community. It's not really about the product. So on the one hand, certainly there is the possibility to create amazing digital collectibles, because you can do things in the digital world that you cannot do in the physical world. So there is a lot to do around this. That is not necessarily just a copy of your hoodie, because I could do a hoodie where the illustrations are moving or things like that, or even something that is not even a wearable. But then I think it's really about how you use those tokens to create a different relationship with the communities. And typically, I could give you a token that is not just a physical version of your hoodie, but that is materializing the fact that you came to the shop and you bought a hoodie, instead of having a line in my CRM, so that you own your data, because each of your interaction with the brand is materialized by a token. If you look very, very far, that's where it could be going. And then according to the tokens you have, you will have a number of benefits if we really look far away. But what I think in any case, in the short, medium term, and what we are exploring as Gucci, is really new ways to interact, and not just creating mirrors of the physical products.
I see. While you were talking, I was thinking I should do like an NFT with the Brighton weather, that it updates with the Brighton weather. But then I thought it's gonna be always the same, always raining. So it's that's not a good idea, probably. Robert, you can understand me, because it always rains. Why is always raining here in UK? It's never changing. But no, I was also thinking that one interesting change with this Web3 is this community power. And for instance, there are already some interesting examples with DAOs that decide about a topic. But my question here for both of you is the following. On one side, it's great to have the community deciding, for instance, the direction of a product. So you can say, look, who should be the new designer of the next collection? Great. I mean, the community can decide. On the other side, I mean, from a brand like Gucci, I expect that Gucci decide, because you have the experience, the knowledge. So where is the line there to, on one side, engage with the community and they can have more power, decisional power, And on the other side, you protect the fact that the brand has the experience, knowledge, network to take probably the right decisions. Where is the right balance? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting question. If we think back before the digital revolution to the olden times, brands might have done consumer research to help them understand what they wanted to do or the direction they wanted to move in. In fashion, it's actually quite different because we invest and we believe in the capability and the capacity of our creative director, our design office to imagine the future. And I think that the reason that people come to Gucci is because that vision about the future, whether it's expressed in the product or in storytelling, is at the core of what we represent. It's who we are. At the same time, as Nicolas said, one of our key mantras today, if not our key mantra, is this idea of empowering self-expression. So I think that what we like to think of is that we will always lead the agenda in terms of our creativity, our expression. But if in so doing, we can also help others and we can empower others to express themselves around that core, then we're being super successful in achieving our mission.
And I would add to that Gucci, in particular, since Alessandro Michele joined us as creative director, has always been also a very collaborative brand. So even in the physical world, I mean, Alessandro is constantly collaborating with artists, with some even now NFT artists like Trevor Andrews, with other brands, etc. And so what is very interesting for us and very promising there is how is it that you can leverage Web3 NFT to bring this to a different scale, because today the collaborations that we do obviously are linked to the number of people that we meet and what we can manage physically. But through Web3, you could have a kind of grassroots creativity crowdsourcing that could be extremely interesting while keeping, as Robert was mentioning, the strong creative direction of the brand.
Yeah, totally agree. I remember when e-commerce started or when social media started, and the classic critique was, all right, this thing doesn't have a huge adoption, number one. There is no impact on the revenues of the company, whatever was e-commerce or social media, yes, but where is the ROI of social media, blah, blah, blah. That was the classic discussion. And now it's completely different, and the impact is is huge, and you have like Amazon and social media drive a lot of business, and maybe is the main channel for many companies around the world. How far do you think are we from the same thing to happen with Web3? Will it happen? Is it something that happen in 2 years, 10 years? I mean, just to understand in your vision, at the moment, okay, is 0.1% of a company P&L, basically, revenues. And how far are we from something that you start to say, well, this thing is kind of important now?
I mean, just a quick answer in terms of, if you look at the valuation of a company like Roblox, you understand how the future is being told today.
Yeah.
And some of the test and learn experiments that we've embarked on do indicate to us, as to your point, at the very beginning of e-commerce, at the very beginning of social media, you began to have signs of the potential. How quickly you can realize that potential, it goes back to some of what we've been discussing this morning. It's a little bit like looking into a crystal ball. But from my standpoint, there is absolutely enough evidence there that this will, in the same way that the e-commerce platform, in the same way that social media has developed to become such an important driver, this will absolutely deliver in that sense.
Absolutely, and then I think we are very much convinced about that over the long term. At the same time, over the short term, we are not planning our initiatives against revenue targets. We are planning for relevance and value, and we are fundamentally convinced that if we bring something that is relevant to the community, the business will follow at a point or another. But it's not the primary objective, like in every.
Do you think that companies will have to become more and more technological to compete in this environment? Because Robert was mentioning Roblox, but Roblox is a tech company. Like Facebook, Apple, Amazon are all tech players. But if you are like in fashion, in hospitality, maybe you're not really a technological company. How far should you move to become more and more technological, or it's not a technological battle and is more a creative and is a different battlefield?
Well, I mean, we are not meant, I think, to become a tech company per se. At the same time, we need to be certainly to master some technologies. We started already very much in many areas. For instance, on the digital business, e-commerce, we have our own internal tech team that is developing the site with the CTO, etc. So we invest a lot in this. I think what we need as a company is to have enough internal tech skills to navigate the ecosystem and build the right partnerships with the right partners and drive them in the right way. We are not meant to rebuild everything internally, but having the level to really drive the best partners and go where we want to go with them is fundamental.
Well, a couple of questions more, and then I'll let you go there. I know that you're super busy and you have to go back into the metaverse. So metaverse never sleeps. What kind of skills do you see? What are the next jobs? Who would you like to hire? What kind of suggestion would you give to university students or people looking for a job in this world? Is it any specific job that you see? For instance, we mentioned Discord. I have 5 people moderating my Discord channel. That's a new job. It didn't exist 10 minutes ago. And it's interesting to see how these new jobs start. Do you see anything interesting there, or any skill that you advise to develop for this evolution?
Well, I think there are very interesting jobs emerging on the creative side, first of all, because this is a completely new environment where you can create and bring creativity and express emotions and beauty in a completely different way. So that's a field where I think a lot. I mean, there is a lot already, and it will develop. Certainly, on the core digital side, Web3 skills are gonna grow a lot, even though they are not necessarily technically super different from Web2 skills, because at the end, a strong software engineer is a strong software engineer. And then, as you were saying, now new social media, community moderators is also certainly something that we see growing. And then behind this, but this is not completely new, data scientists and data engineer to digest all the data points that this new ecosystem is creating.
Marketing, storytelling side, Robert, do you see any new jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point here is that there are different ways, as Nicola referenced earlier on. You have to be savvy to the new ways of communicating around these platforms and through these platforms. So I don't know whether the actual discipline changes, but you definitely have to have individuals who are growing up as natives to that. So the generation that is literally living this experience is the one that is going to be the most adept at capitalizing on it.
The other day, I got an email from one guy that said, are you looking for an NFT marketing specialist? And I thought, wow, I didn't know about this job. His only job is, how to promote an NFT. That's it. On Discord, Twitter, Spaces. It's interesting. Also, it will be a very creative job. What's next?
Moving as well, just adding something, is that a number of these people in the market that you see today, and this is something that we need to adapt to, they are not necessarily willing to work for a company as an employee.
That's a good point.
And that's, I think, another fundamental transformation, whatever the job, is that they want to live wherever they are. In some cases, in Web3, they don't even want to give their identity.
Yeah.
But they are willing to support you and work for you. So I think that's an even bigger evolution than the specific skill set is the work organization that is behind that.
That's a great point. I posted the other day a meme where there is the classic interview, Web 2.0. I don't know, the founder of WeWork on CNN giving an interview, and then Web3 interview. One guy, hidden identity, a nickname that you can't even read, that has a huge following online, and you think, wow, this is really different. It's a different philosophical approach. What's next for Gucci in the next 12 months in Web3 world that you can publicly discuss? Is there any interesting activity, specific campaign, or specific focus for both of you that you are in this moment putting your effort into?
Yeah, 12 months is very long for the visibility I have, but we are certainly accelerating our Web3 initiatives under the umbrella of Gucci Vault, again, because Gucci Vault is this online concept store where you can find exquisite vintage products from Gucci, partnership with other brands, from Vans to Delvaux to young designers, but also the future that is our metaverse activities. So all this is under Gucci Vault, and the way we are developing it, first of all, you know that we announced that we purchased the land in the Sandbox a few weeks ago that is visible but not built yet. So this is certainly something that will come over the next 12 months. We have just right now this collab with Wagmi-san, the tailor of the metaverse, and we are working on some very interesting initiatives around art and the next 100 years of Gucci.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Robert, no comment.
I think the great thing about the metaverse is that there's excitement virtually every second. So we want to keep a little bit of it under wraps, you know?
I love it. Robert, Nicolas, thank you so much. It was really interesting, and congratulations for all of your activities, and let's keep in touch.
Great. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.